Chapter 10 Helen Keller. Scumbia is a small town in the state of Alabama, USA. In 1890, there was a strange law in this town. It was about dogs. If any dog was found moving around the town without its master, it was put to death. A little girl of this town has a dog named Lannis. One night, Lannis was roaming alone in the streets. Naturally, it was caught and put to death as per the law of the state. When the people learnt about it, they were shocked and sent money to the owner of the dog. They wanted the little girl to buy a new dog, but this little girl did not buy any dog for herself. She had another plan in mind. She sent the money to Tommy Stringer, who was a poor blind boy. She wanted Stringer to be sent to a special school for the blind. Do you know who this little girl was? She was Helen Keller. At that time, she was only 10 years old and was herself blind and deaf. Helen Keller was born a healthy child on June 27, 1880, at Scumbia, Alabama, USA. Her parents were Kate Adams Keller and Colonel Arthur Keller. When she was only 19 months old, she had a strange kind of fever. The fever left her blind and deaf. Helen used simple signs to tell what she wanted. For example, a shake of the head meant no, and a nod meant yes, a pull meant come, and a push meant go. But often she found it difficult to communicate with others. This made her angry. In a fit of rage, she would dash things to the floor. Sometimes she ever locked her mother in the kitchen. Helen's parents were sad and did not know what to do. However, they didn't lose heart. They sought the advice of many good doctors. A famous doctor, Alexander, suggested that Helen should have a teacher to stay with her and teach her. They wrote to several persons requesting to teach Helen. At last, they got the services of a very capable teacher for their daughter. She was Annie Sullivan, an expert in teaching the blind. Annie had herself been blind for a time, but now she had recovered her eyesight, though partly. Her experience of blindness had given her much sympathy for the blind. She had made up her mind that she would help at least one blind child to have education. She spent her whole life to fulfill this mission. So Annie came to Helen's house, where she was given a warm welcome by Helen's parents, and soon she was set to her task of teaching Helen. However, Annie's job was not an easy one because Helen was stubborn and self-willed by nature. She was almost impossible to control. She would scream at the top of her voice. She would bite and hit anyone who went near her. But Annie was a patient teacher. She proved herself equal to the task. She began with the teaching of words. She would take Helen's fingers lightly in her hand. Then she would make different signs with them. Different positions of the fingers stood for different letters, called the finger alphabet. At first, Helen did not know that she was spelling a word. She didn't even know but there was any such thing as words. She simply made the signs with Miss Sullivan's help. But when she began to understand, there was no stopping for her. Within a period of just 3 months, she learned 300 words, and she learned so quickly that she became famous worldwide for her accomplishments. It was for this famous little girl that people from all over America had sent money to buy a new dog. Helen learned the Braille system of reading and writing. She joined a school in which she studied with normal students. In 1897, she passed her high school examination. After that, she went to college. Here also, she studied with normal students. She took her first degree in 4 years like any other students. Later, she took degree in many other subjects. She mastered not only in English but also French, German, Greek and Latin. Annie stayed with Helen for nearly 50 years. Both of them were invited to many countries. At each stop, they were given a warm welcome. They had the honor of shaking hands with presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, and princes of different countries. Most importantly, they spoke to the people. They gave new hope and encouragement to the disabled. Often, Helen gave examples of her own life and told them that they could overcome their difficulties with determined efforts. Annie died in 1936. Helen missed her dearly. She started writing a book about Annie. Unluckily, her notes were destroyed in a house fire. She had to redo all the labor. At last, in 1955, Teacher was published. In this book, Helen wrote about Annie. She has been the sunshine of my life all these years. Helen wrote a number of other books also. Helen lived 32 years after Annie's death. With the help of her new assistant, Polly Thompson, she continued to spread hope around the world. In 1960, Polly Thompson died. By then, Helen herself had become very old and weak. At last, this brave woman of Scumbia passed away in 1968. Her lifelong determination to succeed and help others earned her the title America's First Lady of Courage. Helen Keller not only earned knowledge of herself but also helped the disabled all over the world. She visited almost every country of the world. She came to India also. Wherever she went, she visited institutions for the handicapped. She helped a lot in their growth and progress. Today, as a result of her efforts, much attention is paid to the welfare of the blind and